Dear OCO, congrats on an amazing concert. I think we blew people away literally. Yes, it was loud. Hats off to Shannon for his first outing conducting OCO, and to Topher for fine concert mastering. And to all the new players who have signed on so far this year, it's great to have you. Thank you, and see you Wednesday. Marty.
So it was the summer of 1997, and I had been doing little stints as a guest conductor for various orchestras around the Bay Area, and I was playing a lot of flute and teaching. And I was reading the Chronicle, because they used to read the want ads in the Chronicle, because they used to have want ads in the Chronicle. And there was an ad for a conductor in the Oakland Civic Orchestra. You never see advertisements for a conductor in the newspaper. It's not how it's done. It's like this very rarefied thing to find a job as a conductor. So I applied.
Hi, I'm Wendy Shiraki, or Wendy Shiraki Raphael. It seems to happen either way. I play the oboe and the English horn.
And I'm Roger Raphael. I play the oboe, and maybe I'll play the English horn sometime. Maybe. I guess of the two of us, I was the first.
Yeah, I brought props now that you took my favorites away.
Because Wendy, yes, okay, now we're going to show that.
This is from the first concert that the OCO played. Actually, looks like OPR here, back in the days of Ric. And it says May 31st, 1992. Right. I actually have this because I went and listened, because he was playing in it. And it was they were rehearsing in the Robert Heights rec building there, and we were just living about a block away. We noticed in the catalog, that they were putting together an orchestra, and I said, "Oh, you should go play in it."
You told me about that.
Yeah.
So.
And so he went, and I came to the concert, so that's why we have this one. The concert after this one, I started playing also. So
You were pregnant.
Was I?
Yeah.
At that time?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know that at some point we played Peter and the Wolf, and I.
Now, let us begin our story. Early one morning, Peter opened the gate and went out into the big green meadow.
it was a challenge. It was a challenge, but not impossible. I think the thing that made it difficult was that I had a cold. Playing the oboe with a cold is a real pain. Can't breathe at all, so it makes it a little difficult. But we played with Ric he was there for about 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
The duck. By the oboe. And the cat?
My name is Daniel Bao, and I play the French horn. In the early 90s, I moved to Alameda, and I was looking for groups to play with, but I wanted to find an orchestra, and I couldn't find one for, I think, a year or two. But I must have read it in the paper somewhere that there was a performance or that they were looking for players. So in those days, probably a little bit pre-internet, I probably called, showed up, and I think they only had 2 horns at the time. So I'd sort of been looking, basically, for an orchestra to play with. And I found OCO. Yeah. Must have joined sometime in 93, I think, perhaps 94. Good 23, 24 years. Wednesday nights, I schedule vacations and everything around Wednesday nights and concerts. So for me, it's become, or it is a very important part of my life. Well, it was a smaller group when I joined, although eventually we got to 4 horns. Obviously, my perspective is very horn-centered. And we were looking for players, so I remember asking my friends. Luckily, Margaret, who plays violin with us, had moved to Oakland, and I'd gone to school with her. So I said, you should come play with us. She goes, oh, okay. So she joined, and it sort of grew slowly. At the beginning, of course, we played in Redwood, which is nice and pretty, but for classical music, it's not great acoustics. It's very live. It's like playing in a school cafeteria. The transition, I wasn't as involved as like Wendy and Roger. I think I was obviously a little bit newer, and I didn't know Ric that well. I played with him for a few years. So when he announced a change, it was like, oh, new conductor. And I remember meeting some of the new ones, or the prospective ones. I was trying to remember. I only really remember 2, though. I remember Marty, and I remember a younger guy who played, I think he was an assistant with Berkeley Youth Symphony, something like that. But Marty had, I think, a good connection with us, and she obviously, we were a community orchestra, we still are, but the level of playing in those days was perhaps a little bit lower, so we needed a little more hand-holding, and she could get us to play together and listen to each other, and I remember, she would hum or sing some parts, and she seemed to have patience, which is very important. And she knew, for me, what was great, I don't know if it's her experience with the high school students, but to me, it always felt like she was always pushing us to be better, but she somehow could push enough to make us better, but not too much, where we went too far or where we couldn't get to. So she always had, it's always like she had realistic goals. They're always to get better, to play more challenging pieces, to play more in tune, to listen to each other more, to play, as close to what she wanted or what the conductor or what the original composers wanted. And that's, involved about choosing the music and trying to figure out how much to practice on it and what's possible. So to me, that's what really, made her a great fit with us.
Okay, so my name is Margaret Wu. I play violin, and I've been a member of OCO this is my 20th season. I joined at the same time when Marty took over the orchestra. And so I joined through our French horn player, Daniel Bao, who's an old college friend of mine. And at the time, I wasn't playing with any other groups, and actually hadn't been playing for a while. I had played all the way through college, and then took some time off, was in law school, was working, and really wasn't playing very seriously for about 4 or 5 years. And Daniel said the magic words to me. He said, "We have an orchestra, we're looking for string players," and the magic words, "You don't have to audition." So I said, "Okay, I'll come." And I've been here ever since. You know, I had been playing for most of my life and had kind of gotten out of it, and I hadn't actually really realized how much I had missed it until I was back playing with OCO and realized it was really important for me to keep playing. So I'm glad I'm still here. It's the people. I mean, Marty's a big part of it. She's a fantastic conductor, and I mean, I remember from the first rehearsal, it was really clear she not only understood the music, but was really good at conveying it to people, and very efficient in the rehearsals, which I appreciate. But the group as a whole, I think, really has evolved over the years, and it's really become a very cohesive group.
So I'm Sister Laurel O'Neill. I play violin in OCO. I've played violin since about the 4th grade. So when Laura asked me later on, "Would you like to play with an orchestra?" I thought, yeah, terrific. She said, "Well, you know, how about we spend this year getting you ready for an audition?" And at that point I thought, well, there goes that dream, because I was terrified. I thought, I can't do an audition. And I found a flyer for Oakland Civic Orchestra in some music store in Berkeley. And it said, "No auditions needed." I thought, man, now that orchestra's for me, you know. So this was about 1993. I got myself to BART, got on a bus, traveled out to where Oakland Civic Orchestra was rehearsing then, and that's kind of the long, short version of how I got to be in OCO. So I started playing when Ric Zappa was the conductor. I continued playing. I remember, you know, we auditioned Marty for the orchestra. There were about 7 people auditioning, and we were all pretty sad that Ric was leaving. I mean, we thought that would be the end of things. But he had it really well planned, and so we had these 7 people come in, and some of them were okay, some of them were like, this was going to be a load of fun for them. One guy came in his white turtleneck and his black jacket and all of that, and you know, he looked like he thought he'd walked in off of Carnegie Hall or off the stage at Davies or something, you know. And at that time, we were playing a Haydn Symphony. It was the Haydn Symphony that was Marty's audition piece. It was the Haydn Symphony that we were all playing. And this guy, I don't remember what the tempo was for it, but it was some, for us, ridiculously difficult tempo, like 120 beats a minute, you know. And so he pulls out his baton and he brings it down at 120 beats per second. And it took us about a measure and a half to fall completely to pieces. You know, it was just this complete train wreck. And did he stop? Did he regroup? Not particularly. He just kept beating away at 120 beats per minute. You know, by the 3rd measure, the entire orchestra had fallen to pieces, and we were all laughing at that point, looking at each other. And he's still beating away at 100. Well, okay. Marty came in, did her audition. Same Haydn piece. Maybe we did a different movement, I don't remember. But she spent a half an hour with us. And from the time we began to the end of that half hour, we had improved so much as an orchestra. We were looking at each other, not laughing this time, but we were looking at each other saying, "Man, did you know we could do that? Did you know that that was possible?" And for me, it kind of recaptured that initial experience of grade school when, did you have any idea that playing an orchestra could be like this? You know, just such an overwhelming experience of awe and adventure and excitement and all of that. So Marty did her audition, she left. We got together. A number of us thought, how could we not? How could we not vote for Marty? And a number of people in the orchestra said, now wait a minute, you know, Wednesday nights are supposed to be fun. Wednesday nights are supposed to be like, get away from the kids, get away from work, get away from whatever. Why in the world do we want to be working hard at this? And the rest of us said things like, what kind of fun can it be to create bad music, you know? Well, so I've stayed with Oakland Civic Orchestra not only because I enjoy playing, but because for me the orchestra has been that kind of experience. We always play music. Every time I hear what we're going to play, it's like, we can't play that. Are you nuts? We're all amateurs. Some of us have never had lessons. We can't do that. And yet, invariably, we do it. We always, you know, when I was in grade school, it was a kind of transcendent experience. And it has continued being that right along. So, and Marty has made it that. You know, Marty has helped it be that. And the people who have committed to it and continue to come back are committed, I think, for those reasons. Not only those reasons, of course. We all have fun, and we enjoy each other.
The kind of music I like to play is sort of traditional romantic music, so Dvorak and, you know, that time period. Tchaikovsky, etc. So it requires, you know, a very skilled set of musicians. And over time, we've been able to do that. When we first started, there's no way we could have played a Mahler symphony. And we're playing Mahler 4, you know. So you can definitely see those changes. We used to have to play a lot of Haydn, a lot of early pieces that had much easier horn parts. So from my perspective, I definitely see it. And just having, you know, more players and a wider variety, you can play sort of bigger, more challenging pieces.
And then when I came to the Bay Area, over time, I discovered OCO, and here you have a group of people, kind of a ragtag bunch, playing music that was a little like what we'd heard in the records, you know, William Tell Overture and that kind of stuff. Actually playing it maybe a little. It sounded a lot like what we'd heard on the record. Not quite, but you know. And then from there, we grew from a group that had maybe 6 violins total, or maybe 10 violins total sometimes if we were really lucky. None of them could play really well, to a group that began having better players join, which meant that the players in the orchestra got better themselves. Some took lessons because they realized they didn't have to stop growing at this, and that maybe this could be an orchestra. It really could. And Marty continued, I think, to quietly but insistently to make sure that we did grow and that we did dream.
That's a lot.
But, you know, we kind of decided we liked Marty the best in terms of, you know, ability to indicate to us and communicate well to a group of our sort of nature. So
Caliber.
Yeah. So we wound up picking her.
I remember that she made us listen to each other and made us sound better, and I think that was really important, because I know that every time we would show up at rehearsal, we would wonder if people were tuning up or were they playing, and sometimes we would get there late and find out that, oh my goodness, they were playing.
Right, we used to have this little game we'd play. You couldn't tell from outside you had to see that there was somebody waving the stick around, you know, to know that it was not just warm-up time, you know. So we've improved since then.
Yeah.
We're going to open with Scott Joplin. Thank you for being here.
So I started 20 years ago, and at the time I think I was probably the youngest member, and that definitely is not true anymore. It's the people. I mean, Marty's a big part of it. She's a fantastic conductor, and I mean, I remember from the first rehearsal, it was really clear she not only understood the music, but was really good at conveying it to people, and very efficient in the rehearsals, which I appreciate. I think we have really grown musically in terms of, you know, the concert we just played. We played Brahms, that same piece. I can't remember when, it was a while ago, but I think the quality of playing, you know, people getting used to playing with each other, playing with Marty, playing with different conductors, that relationship I think has grown a lot. But the group as a whole, I think, really has evolved over the years, and it's really become a very cohesive group. People are really committed to this orchestra, to playing great music, playing modern music, playing the classics, and really supporting each other of, you know, different people in the orchestra taking solo roles or different roles. And it's just a really neat group of people, and I think it's pretty unique to find that right combination of you know, people who not only play well together, but really do like each other and really have fun together. So I think it's a really special group.
Hi, I'm Sue Schallenberger, and I played trumpet in OCO for 19 years. I joined OCO in 1997 at the same time Marty joined. Well, Marty got the conducting job, and there was no trumpet player at the time, and I was there, and she asked me to join. Yeah, it was fun. I think it was the first orchestra I played in. I'd only been playing in a band before that. You know, Marty was she was a choral conductor at that time. She had a lot of gigs. I met her, you know, from playing in church. Actually, I played with her for Easter. Well, at first it seemed like a pretty small group. It was pretty much a ragtag collection. The winds were fairly complete. The woodwinds were fairly complete. It seemed like there were 2 clarinets, 2 flutes, 2 oboes. I don't know if there were 2 bassoons, but the brass section was incomplete and the string section was very incomplete. And I don't even think we had a percussionist at the time either. So it was pretty much something that Marty had to do a lot of recruiting right away. I think it took a little while to get off the ground, to go from the original group, because people who were there were pretty attached, I think, to Ric Zappa. I never knew him, and I never, you know, I wasn't in the group when he was there, but that original core group of people that had played with him, I think, were kind of sort of attached to Ric. I think they were a little bit sad to lose him. So I think there was a little bit of a rough transition, I think, at the beginning, going for some of those people, and then some of those people didn't stay around, and some of them are still there. I think it might have been a little rough in the beginning because there were so many things to iron out. I don't really remember what the organizational setup was of the orchestra, but I do remember that Marty pretty much had to. It seemed like she pretty much had to reset everything from the beginning. That's what I remember. It's what it felt like. It was a diverse group of instrumentalists. It was not. There were a lot of missing instruments in terms of calling it an orchestra. It was really more of an ensemble. It really was it was kind of a, it was maybe a starter set for an orchestra. Yeah, I think it went quickly from that small group. I think she did acquire some string players pretty quickly. We played some fairly easy music, I think, at the beginning. I think she had to carefully choose the repertoire at the beginning because she had to select it for what instruments were available. And I don't even remember that we had 2 trumpets for a while, or we would have to pull people in. I think she actually did that quite a bit, actually. She pulled people in. So there were definitely more ringers at the beginning. At the end, and now I don't think there are any ringers, but at the beginning I think she was pulling people in, calling on friends for favors, that type of thing. So, I mean, by the time we went to St. Paul's, we were already big. So we had grown a lot. I think we were already 50 pieces by the time we went to St. Paul's. Yeah, I think while we were at the Veterans, we were pretty much, you know, had much more limited repertoire, but by the time we went to St. Paul's, you know, we were playing much more difficult material. Well, for sure we were playing a lot of Beethoven Symphonies, and I remember we played Sibelius, but that was at Lake Merritt. But when we started playing some of those symphonies, I think it was much more challenging for the orchestra, so especially for the string players, too. Well, the strings, you know, the strings are playing, you know, they're doing their thing up front, which you can't always hear, especially because the woodwinds are between you and the strings. I mean, in a good acoustical environment, maybe you could, but you can't always hear the strings. And I know that's probably horrifying to the conductor. But when it's full orchestra, a lot of times what the brass is hearing is the brass and the woodwinds, and the strings is this little kind of distant echo. Even though they're maybe playing the same notes that we're playing. They're going like mad up there, and sometimes when she asks them to play, and I hear what they're actually playing, I'm like, oh my God, that's so many notes. That is just a crazy amount of notes. They're playing these mad scales up and down, and we're just playing ba ba ba.
I'm Suzanne Rubline, and I play the flute in the OCO. My first concert with OCO was the spring of 1998. It was Marty's first year, but not her first concert. I knew her, we had the same flute teacher, and that was how I met Marty. And I remember her saying to me, oh, I'm maybe gonna get this job with Oakland Civic, and you live in Oakland, and that would be so great. And she said, if I get this job, I'll let you know, and maybe I can make a space for you. And she called and said, okay, I want you to come play this next concert. And so that's how I started. So I've been there for a pretty long time now. So this was a great opportunity to have a regular place to play, but I'd never had a conductor who was also a flute player, and that was really exciting to me because you know, she always is careful about picking repertoire for, you know, where everybody gets a little something to do, and it was nice to, you know, to have a conductor who's picking out music that, you know, the flutes will like. Yeah. Really the opportunity to play great repertoire. You know, we're doing new music. We're doing old I guess, warhorse pieces, which are they are that for a reason, and it's nice to get to play them. And you know, sometimes Marty composes new music, which is always really exciting, and she's always coming up with something new for us to do. We rarely repeat music, which is fun. Yeah, and the people that I play with in the wind section, some of them have been there a very long time. I've sat next to Roger now, our oboe player, and his wife Wendy, another oboe player. We've sat together for all these years, and let's see, Ron behind me in the clarinet section, he's been there for many years, and you know, you just get to know each other, and you know each other's playing, and there's something special about that when you get into an ensemble, and you know, I know Roger's playing so well that it's like we just get in a groove. There's a lot we don't have to say, and that's really cool. Like when I'm sitting in the middle of the orchestra and I'm hearing all the parts, and that's when I can really go, wow, this is a great piece. But it's so exciting to sit in the middle of the orchestra and have it all going on around me and actively playing it. And having a son now who's 3, we pretty much play all kinds of music for him. Yeah, he loves to hear music, and he's been to our concerts a few times. He also likes to watch our OCO videos on YouTube. He'll ask me to put them on, and he'll sit on the couch and watch them. And he likes to watch Marty. And I took a video of him because he was showing. He said, "Oh, he said, Mommy, this is what Marty does." And he did he did this thing where he stopped, and he had his little drumstick, and he sort of looked around, like it was like he'd watch her, you know, like sort of, is everybody ready? And then he did this whole, like, you know, just had the gestures down, and it was very interesting. But yeah, he says, "Oh, I want to do what Marty's doing," and yeah, it's funny.
My name's Tim Erickson, and I play cello in the Oakland Civic Orchestra. I'm not sure how long I've been in OCO, probably at least 10 years. My daughter attended Lick Wilmerding High School, where Marty does the instrumental music program, from 2001 to 2005. And I think that's when I met Marty. And so I probably found out about the orchestra during that period. And so you go online and you call around and say, hey, is there an orchestra somewhere that I might be able to play in? And I heard about OCO and ended up asking Marty about it because I heard that she was the conductor. So because I knew her from school, I asked her about it, and she said, oh, come on, come ahead. You play a stringed instrument, you breathe, come play. I was playing chamber music with my wife and some friends, and eventually I brought them all to play in OCO as well. I don't really know why OCO exists, but I'm certainly glad that it does. There is something kind of magical about a community orchestra, someplace where we all go and it's even pay to play, but we all get to make music together and have it be something that comes from the community, not from a university or some vanity program for some conductor or other musicians. And the diversity of people and experience and talent is really interesting, and I just can't say enough about our director Marty for how she is able to include people like me at the same time as she includes much more advanced players. Well, I think first and foremost, I come to OCO for the music. It is such a joy to be part of something when it's working, and it is sometimes painful to be part of something when it's not quite working yet, but the challenge is to make it work, and that's really exciting to me. We had a conversation at a rehearsal recently. Our assistant conductor, Jason, was asking, so what are you really looking for in this concert? The oboe/English horn player, Wendy, said, I just want to get the notes right. And I'm so glad she said that, because that's really where I am a lot of the time. Just, if we could only get the notes, it would be great. But music is a lot more than just getting the notes. And there are some transcendent moments in rehearsals or performances where it's possible actually to get past the notes and get into the music. And it's probably easier to do that the better you are at actually playing your instrument. But even being kind of an intermediate player like me, there are times when that can happen. And that can only happen if there are 20 to 60 other people playing there with you to get that hit from orchestral music from the inside. And it's just wonderful, it's transporting. I think one of the things that OCO has is we've gotten so much better in the last 5 or 10 years. We're becoming an actually better orchestra. We're not just people who get together who play at the notes. We can actually make music a bunch of the time. And it's kind of terrifying to listen to old recordings and hear kind of how crummy it was, and then listen to a new recording and hear that, for minutes at a stretch, we sound like an actual orchestra. And that's very, very exciting. Marty, as a good conductor, has a way of guilting you very gently into either practicing more or listening better or actually writing the program notes. And it's an essential skill. She has yet to get us all to pay our dues on time, but that means she has something to work on as well.